Hello and welcome to my astrology channel. I hope you are all doing well and you're all healthy and staying indoors, and if you happen to be infected, I hope you get well as soon as possible. And yes, I'm talking about the corona thing. Since I am staying indoors a lot, and I have been staying indoors a lot, however, I still work from home, so my full-time job, and I still take exams from home. It's all, like, great, all the stuff that we can do in today's world with the internet and everything. But yeah, I have managed to make some time, finally, to do another astrology video, and I hope you will enjoy it. So I'm going to be talking about Venus in Scorpio. As usual, I'm going to start with the general description of Venus in Scorpio, things like strengths, weaknesses, interests, romantic style, romantic interests, hobbies, passions, followed by a description of the female ideal in the chart of a man that has this placement. And also, last but not least, I'm going to be talking about some Venus in Scorpio and Ascendant in Scorpio examples to better portray the kind of physical appearance that Venus in Scorpio people tend to find most appealing. And also, if you are interested in a personal consultation, please email me at the email that I will write in the description of the video. Okay? So, thank you. Okay, so Venus in Scorpio. Finally, as you probably know, this is one of the darker signs in astrology, because they are everything to do with the hidden mysteries of the world and the dark side of human nature. So, one of the things that I can say right off the bat is that Venus and Scorpio people, regardless of what they are working in, they will be interested in investigation, in mysteries, in getting to the bottom of things. So they will be, even though they may not be trained in psychology, they will be like natural-born psychologists. They will be very good at understanding people's motivations, the way that they function, their whole psychological makeup. And as a consequence, they will be very good at manipulating, should they choose to. Although it doesn't necessarily mean that, everybody with Venus in Scorpio is manipulative or very negative, but with this placement, you should watch out a little bit. If you know somebody with this placement, don't tell them all your secrets, because they can use them against you. And they can use them to understand your whole psychological profile and your motivations and what you're going to be doing next. It almost reminds me of that quote from Game of Thrones where Littlefinger was telling Sansa that she should always, quote, keep your foes confused if they don't know what you're about to do next. You have the advantage, or no, keep them confused, because sometimes act in ways that are gonna seem like you're doing things against your best interest, because that way they will be confused that they will not be able to anticipate your next move. So yeah, Littlefinger is kind of like an example of somebody with a very bad Scorpio energy, like somebody who's very conniving, manipulative, etc. Now, people with Venus in Scorpio, men with Venus in Scorpio will tend to project this energy on the kind of women that they like. But women with Venus in Scorpio in particular, I would say, are more likely to use their manipulative powers and their sexuality to get what they want in life. Because, yes, Scorpio also rules sexuality. It also rules things like joint finances. It rules things like venture capitalism and anything to do with, basically managing other people's money, everything to do with that. So people with Venus in Scorpio, they will have natural talents in this area. They will have natural interest in sexuality, anything to do with sexuality. It could be things like, the psychology of sexuality. It could be Kama Sutra. It could be anything connected with sexuality at all. Of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that people with Venus in Scorpio are going to be promiscuous, but they will definitely tend to think that sex is an important part of life. Because remember, Venus is the things you love, your passions, your interests, etc. So people with Venus in Scorpio, particularly women with Venus in Scorpio, they will be interested in exploring this side of life. So, yeah, I mean, Scorpio and Gemini in Vedic astrology are seen the most sexually active or sexual signs of the zodiac. But Scorpio, unlike Gemini, is much more oriented on the profound nature of sexuality, of, intimacy, of connecting with someone. They can be very loyal unless they are manifesting this energy to a very negative extent and using their sexuality to manipulate others. But generally, it's not like Scorpio being a water sign. It's very emotional and it tends to be very loyal. And yeah, they tend to focus more on committed relationships. Okay, let's see. So, like I said, yeah, very strong intuition. Okay, they will always be drawn to secrets. They will be drawn to things like, one thing that I can mention, also, it is the sign that rules death, so, to some extent. Like Saturn, actually, like not Capricorn, actually, no, Scorpio is actually the sign that rules death the most. And it's also, in Vedic astrology, it's ruled by the planet Mars, because in Vedic astrology, there is no Pluto. It's not being recognized as an influence. Although, for me personally, because I also started out learning tropical astrology, I still use Pluto sometimes. But that's not to do with this description. But yeah, according to traditional Vedic astrology, the ruler for Scorpio is Mars. And Venus in Scorpio, it's actually not the best placement. It's not seen as the best placement. Because, Venus it's in the sign of Mars, so it's not, it's the opposite energy of what Venus represents, because Venus naturally rules Taurus and Libra. Taurus happens to be the opposite sign from Scorpio. So this basically means that, Venus is not the happiest in this sign. But one thing that I heard is, and I heard this a while ago from some astrologer's video. I don't know if this is true. It's just something that I felt maybe I should throw in there because it's maybe flattering to some people. But apparently, women who have Venus in Scorpio are quite good in the bedroom activities department. Because supposedly, Venus in Pisces is officially the exalted Venus, but Venus in Pisces actually shows more like love, because remember, Venus is the planet of love, so Venus in Pisces is more like the pure, spiritual, passionate, intoxicating sort of romantic love, but it's more like, Venus in Pisces is the type that dreams of, singing with the angels and floating and being in love with everything and life and animals and humans and everything. So it's a purely platonic kind of energy. Whereas Venus in Scorpio, because it's the sign of sexuality, is going to be way more interested in the physical side of a relationship. And they're going to be working on that side because they are, because it's a natural area of interest to them to explore their sexuality. So yeah, that's like a short parenthesis. So also, one of the things that I will say is that Venus in Scorpio, they will be interested in anything to do with death. That's what I wanted to say. Like, they might be interested in definitely, things like vampire movies, things like, I don't know if you know that show, Dr. G. Like, she is some kind of doctor. I forgot, I think it was on Discovery Channel. She's a woman, a lady, doctor who does autopsies. So, yeah, that would definitely be something that Venus and Scorpio people love to watch, things like investigating the cause of death, things to do with funerals, anything that is kind of dark, creepy, gothic love stories, like Crimson Peak. I don't know, it's a movie by, I forgot his name, Guillermo del Toro, I think. Yeah, you should watch that if you have Venus and Scorpio. You will definitely like it. So yeah, they like everything that's kind of dark and like mysterious and hidden, and they will also, I would say, more likely be interested in Wicca. Especially women with Venus in Scorpio, they will be interested in Wicca and paganism, and but they will be interested in a different way than Venus and Taurus, because if Venus and Taurus will also to some extent be interested, like Taurus energy in general, because Wicca is a very nature-focused belief system, but Scorpio will be interested in witchcraft from a darker side, this issue of cursing maybe, and if they're manifesting the negative energy. I'm not trying to say that they're all like crazy witches or something, but if they are manifesting the obsessive emotional side of Scorpio where they can't let go of love, they will consider hexing someone, or if they can't let go of a grudge, because Scorpio is notorious for being the most vengeful sign of the zodiac. So yeah, like people with Venus and Scorpio, they will definitely, I think, be drawn to something like witchcraft, Wicca. Or, I don't know, I guess Wicca is the more modern term for paganism. So, yeah, so anything that is, taboo, this is something that, will interest Venus and Scorpio. So like I said, talent in psychology, talent. Oh, and because they have a natural talent for psychology, they will be good at politics, naturally. Of course, in order to see if someone is good in politics, it doesn't just take Venus and Scorpio, but if you have Venus and Scorpio, it's a plus. It is a plus in anything to do with manipulating people, or anticipating people's needs, or, maybe being, focusing on your seductive powers. So, like, for a woman, if she has Venus in Scorpio, she will generally not hesitate to make the most of her beauty and her feminine charms to get what she wants, So, yeah. Okay, so some examples with Venus and Scorpio, of people with Venus and Scorpio. Apparently, there are a lot of people, like a lot of really cool people have Venus and Scorpio. Like, this list alone is going to take me a long time. So, okay, Venus and Scorpio, let's see. Emmanuel Macron, the president of France. Nicolas Sarkozy, former president of France, has Venus and Scorpio in the 3rd house. In the 3rd house, which is the house of oratoric desires, and it's also the house of your ambitions and the way that you take action to achieve what you want. So Venus in Scorpio shows that Nicolas Sarkozy definitely used his Scorpio talents for, reading people to get about in politics, in the political area. Christina Aguilera, Venus in Scorpio in the 10th house, haha. And I really, speaking of women using their sexuality, I remember clearly a quote from her, like maybe you can Google it, that I read a long time ago, where she was saying that every woman has a duty to use her sexuality or to explore her sexuality. I don't remember exactly, but it was basically, she made it sound like a woman should use her sexuality to get ahead in life or something like that. So, which is like perfectly explained by her Venus in Scorpio being in the 10th house, which is the house of career and public image and status. So, yeah. It also happens, Venus is also the planet that rules the voice. So it could also literally show that you use your voice in a way, in a scorpionic way to gain power, basically. David Bowie, Venus in Scorpio, I think in the 11th house, but I'm not sure, conjunct Ketu. Again, great singer, very weird, which is explained by Venus conjunct Ketu. However, Venus conjunct Ketu actually shows somebody who is spiritual. Ketu, aka South Node, in case you don't know. Yeah, it also shows somebody spiritual, but basically anything to do with the nodal axis, because if a planet is conjunct Ketu, it's also opposite Rahu, so it basically makes somebody weird by default. And the man was intensely weird, but a very good artist. Billie Eilish, Venus in Scorpio in the 10th house. The irony, because she has the same planet as Christina Aguilera, except she is notorious, I think, for walking around all covered up and not showing her body, so, I mean, maybe she is the opposite. She's taking the opposite approach, like she's creating mystery surrounding her body to gain attention. Just a thought. Okay. Vanessa Paradis, I think she is Johnny Depp's ex-wife, also French actress and singer. Venus conjunct Mars is Scorpio in the 2nd house. The house of voice, again. And Venus conjunct Mars, wow, this is a hugely scorpionic energy. And clearly, the woman was married to the same man for 100 years, so it's definitely something that can show a loyal partner in romance. Jude Law, Venus conjunct Mars conjunct Mercury conjunct the Ascendant, so he has Venus, Mars, and Mercury all in Scorpio on the Ascendant, all in Scorpio, all of that opposite Saturn. That is a huge Scorpio energy, dear God. And also, it's really funny here with on the Ascendant, it also shows that it influences his physical appearance. And all of these planets like Mercury and Venus and opposite Saturn are influencing him looking mature and pretty. Venus conjunct Ascendant, I probably mentioned this before, will make anybody look pretty. But in his case, also conjunct Mars, he is a masculine form of pretty. And youthful, because Mercury is in there as well. And all of those opposite Saturn shows that somehow he is masculine, pretty, youthful, but also shows off some kind of a serious outlook and image to the world. Vincent Cassel, Venus conjunct Scorpio, Venus conjunct Sun in Scorpio in the 5th house. Great placement for an actor. 5th house rules the acting profession. It is the house of the Sun. And yeah, also Venus conjunct Sun in Scorpio. Very scorpionic, very artistically focused Scorpio energy. The guy did play a few dark roles, I guess. I don't remember exactly all of his roles, but I'm pretty sure he maybe at some point did some weird war or vampire stories. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But in his case, it's funny because the Venus and Sun are light-hearted planets, but they are in Scorpio, and they are in the 5th house, which is also a pretty light-hearted placement. But in any case, yeah, he has that Scorpio energy. Winston Churchill, Venus in Scorpio in the 3rd house, wildly conjunct the Sun. Funny, because in Scorpio conjunct the Sun in the 3rd house, again, the man used his scorpionic talent for manipulation in his oratoric persona. He used his talent of oration to manipulate people. Okay, maybe manipulate is kind of a negative connotation on things, but you know what I'm saying. Like, these people can be very convincing. If you have, like, Scorpio in the 3rd house, that is, like, ruling the house of communication. So, the way that you communicate can be very persuasive. Particularly with Venus in Scorpio, because, like, Venus is a planet that shows diplomacy. So it's very good for conveying a message in a non-threatening way. However, being in Scorpio, it can still be really firm and passionate and use the insight that it has on human nature to basically to try to persuade people to see your point of view. Okay, Charles de Gaulle, I think he was I don't remember exactly, he was some kind of a statesperson, also in France around before the Second World War, I think, or during the Second World War. Venus conjunct Sun, conjunct Mercury in the third house again. So there's like already a pattern here of having loads of politicians who have Venus in Scorpio, in also particularly in the third house. Margaret Thatcher, also Venus in Scorpio in the second house. Second house, that house of voice. But also the second house is the house of family, so, and to some extent it's also connected to the homeland. It's not exactly the homeland, but the first house is basically the placement of birth, but the second house is pretty close. It's the family, and I don't know, it's close to the place of origin. Ivanka Trump, Venus in Scorpio. Her birth time was unknown, I think, because I only wrote Venus in Scorpio here. I made a list. Kevin Costner, Moon conjunct Venus in Scorpio in the third house. Wow. Kevin Costner, he's a really great actor. And it's funny because he's known for being rather quiet and mysterious. And, yeah, Moon conjunct Venus, two feminine planets, definitely shows somebody who's very charismatic and, you know, in touch with his feminine side. And in Scorpio in the third house, it's applied to, again, his oratoric abilities, which can also mean acting to some extent. Kim Basinger, Sun conjunct Venus conjunct Mercury in Scorpio in the, I think it's the 10th house, I'm not sure, or the 11th house. Oh, I think it's the 11th house. In any case, like, Kim Basinger was a femme fatale in the 80s and the 90s, I think, and she is still really good looking, even now when she's like 60-something. So it definitely explains her amount of sex appeal, if you ask me, like having Sun conjunct Venus conjunct Mercury in Scorpio. In the 11th house, the 11th house is the house of large networks and the way that you appeal to the public at large, so it fits. Sinead O'Connor, Sun conjunct Venus conjunct Mercury in the first house, conjunct Ascendant. Again, in her case, it also affects her physical appearance. And one thing that I've noticed, like with people who have Ascendant in Scorpio, and actually in water signs in general, is that they tend to have quite large eyes. I mean, not always, but I think especially with the women, like it's just something that I've noticed. And I think to some extent maybe it's explained because, I don't know, to the relation to the feminine energy, because all the water signs are the most feminine signs of the zodiac, and wide eyes on a woman is a sign of having a lot of estrogen in your body, aka a lot of feminine energy. But maybe I am looking too far into it. I think there's something to it though, because like I can give you like tons of examples of women who have Ascendant in a feminine in a water sign and they have large eyes. So yeah, Sinead O'Connor, she has Sun conjunct Venus conjunct Mercury in the first house. And again, with Venus there, it shows that she is really good looking. And with Mercury, it also shows that, you know, youthful appearance. And Sun shows fair skin or fair features in general. So yeah, good looking. And also talented, obviously. Jeanne Moreau, this was a French actress as well. Venus conjunct Saturn in Scorpio in the 8th house, conjunct Ketu as well. Wow, that is a very intense Scorpio energy in the 8th house, no less. Very persuasive, but also conjunct Saturn there, it basically shows that, funny, like, it probably shows to me that this lady was quite repressed to some extent, or like, she used her Venus energy and her sexuality in a very focused career way. Like, she focused her sexual energy into her career and her profession, rather than, you know, scattering it on affairs. Al Capone, Venus conjunct Saturn in Scorpio in the 11th house. Again. So yeah, one thing that I also mentioned, which I think to some extent maybe it was understood, but like maybe I should voice it, is that, you know, Scorpio is also the sign of power. So Venus, people who have Venus in Scorpio or a lot of Scorpio placements, they will definitely be drawn to achieving positions of power. And people with Venus in Scorpio, they will love power. They will love the idea of power. You know, so they will be definitely drawn to it. And because they're also, you know, naturally not afraid to go to the dark side, yeah, it can explain people that, you know, they're in tough areas of life, like connected to drugs and prostitution and God knows what, and gangster activities. So yeah, because it's not, of course it doesn't mean everybody with Scorpio will go there, but if there are, I would say, but the ones who have strong Scorpio placements are the more likely to manage in that kind of scenario, because it's a tough life, and Scorpio is a very tough energy, particularly when it's also mixed with Saturn, a lot of Saturn in the chart. So yeah, Al Capone fits that. So, I know people with Ascendant in Scorpio. So just listen to some of the women who have this. Diana, Princess of Wales, Ascendant in Scorpio, opposite Venus. Now, Venus aspecting the Ascendant, whether it's opposite, but especially conjunct, but also opposite, it still casts its light and its energy on the physical appearance of a person. And for a woman, it makes you attractive. Like, it makes you at least above average attractive, which I think is very true in her case, you know. She was obviously very attractive, I think, very charismatic, and Ascendant in Scorpio is also, you know, somebody who can achieve a lot of power, which she did, even politically to some extent, because she had a lot of influence, maybe not power, but she had influence. So yeah, and she also had big eyes. Kim Kardashian, Ascendant conjunct Mars in Scorpio. It's funny here, because, like, this is just something that I can add so that you can remember it for later as well. Planets like Mars, Saturn, actually, Saturn not so much, but the planet Mars in particular, and Rahu maybe, and Saturn to a lesser extent, can give a darker appearance. Like, they can give dark complexion and dark eyes and dark skin. That's what they tend to. Whereas planets like the Sun and the Moon also tend to give lighter complexion, lighter features like blue eyes and blonde hair. Obviously within the limits of the genetic pool, because, I mean, if you haven't had anybody with blonde hair in your family for 5 generations, even if you have Ascendant in Leo, you're probably not going to be a blonde. But you will tend to be the lighter color of your ancestors' hair color, for instance. Just a small parenthesis. So yeah, so Kim Kardashian having her Ascendant conjunct Mars kind of, you know, it fits her overall dark, exotic features. And also, again, she has big eyes. Scarlett Johansson, Ascendant in conjunct Sun in Scorpio, not just Sun, conjunct Mercury and conjunct Ketu, fits her appearance as well. Again, her eyes are quite big, and her overall features are light, you know, because conjunct Sun and conjunct Ketu. I mentioned this in a past video as well. Ketu on the Ascendant tends to give a very pale complexion. And yeah, so pale features in general. Nicole Kidman also has Ketu on the Ascendant. So yeah, just an example. Jodie Foster, Sun conjunct Ascendant in Scorpio. Again, Sun conjunct Ascendant, light features. She has big blue eyes as well. Elvis, Ascendant in Scorpio. Okay, no aspects. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Elvis Ascendant in Scorpio aspected by Saturn. So Saturn, to some extent, again, gives darker features, but not as dark as Mars. And also gives a tall body. So yeah, and when I say aspected by Saturn, it means, I don't remember exactly where his Saturn is placed, but I did mention this before, and I probably will make a video at some point that in Vedic Astrologies, in Vedic astrology, some planets like Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, they cast so-called special aspects. So when I say aspected, it's not the same as trine or sextile, as they exist in tropical astrology. The only aspects which are common for both tropical and Vedic astrology are conjunction and opposition, which are the two aspects that pretty much every planet casts. But in addition to the conjunction and opposition, some planets also cast these so-called special aspects. So he has one of those special aspects by Saturn on his ascendant. Eminem, ascendant is Scorpio, opposite Saturn. Again, to some extent. He doesn't have dark features, so I don't know. Maybe in this case, maybe he has other planets that I missed, or like energies that I missed. But otherwise, it could just be genetic. That he turned out being blue-eyed. But also, funny enough, even the men, even Elvis and Eminem, they have big eyes, I think. Okay, Catherine Zeta-Jones, ascendant in Scorpio, no particular aspects. Okay, she doesn't have particularly big eyes. The only counterexample so far. And no particular, there's no other energy there. So she only has like ascendant in Scorpio, but no major aspect from any planet. But she has that dark, intense, exotic appearance, I think. And Brigitte Bardot, ascendant in Scorpio, opposite Moon. Moon on the ascendant gives a very feminine appearance, a very appealing appearance. And when I say on the ascendant here, it means primarily the conjunction, but the opposition is like a close second in terms of how important the influence is. Jennifer Lawrence, ascendant in Scorpio, opposite Moon. Again, fair features. Yeah, Moon tends to give fair features in general, just like the Sun. Elizabeth Taylor, ascendant in Scorpio. No particular giant aspects from any planet, but Elizabeth Taylor to me is like a typical Scorpio ascendant. Very good looking, dark, exotic, dark hair, those blue-violet eyes, really mysterious looking, feminine kind of woman. Some other examples: Bruce Lee, Marlon Brando, Brad Pitt. Bradley Cooper has Mars conjunct Rahu conjunct ascendant in Scorpio. Holy crap. There's a lot of energy. Like Liam Neeson, Moon conjunct ascendant in Scorpio, opposite Sun, Mercury, and Venus. So, yeah, holy shit. Angela Merkel also has ascendant in Scorpio, talking about politics in Scorpio. Sean Penn, Michael Fassbender, Keisha. Let's see, do I have anything else? Nope, that's pretty much it. Yeah, but obviously if you can find plenty of examples if you look online, but when I got these examples from astrotheme.com, and you can search there by, I think, planetary aspects or planet astrology and statistics, and you can search by, I actually searched by ascendant in first house in Sagittarius, because Astrotheme uses tropical astrology, the tropical zodiac, and if you remember, I mentioned this in the past videos as well, is that when it comes to sidereal placements, you have to detract 23 degrees. So basically, if your ascendant is in Sagittarius according to tropical astrology, but it's before 23 degrees Sagittarius, you are certainly a ascendant in Scorpio by the sidereal zodiac. If you're over 23 degrees, you have to calculate your exact chart to know, because at some point at 23 point something degrees or 24 degrees, that's where the difference ends between the tropical and sidereal zodiac, whatever. No point in complicating things, but there are plenty of examples that I gave you anyway, and yeah, so you can be sure that you are in good company. Oh, and another example, right, that I forgot to mention, but is one of my favorite actresses right now, is Jessica Chastain, and she has ascendant in Scorpio, opposite Moon and Jupiter. So, yeah, she's gorgeous and also very feminine because the Moon aspects her, and Jupiter makes her tall and looking, jovial, and gives her the nice oval face. So yeah, there are a lot of cool people that have the Ascendant in Scorpio and Venus in Scorpio as well. So yeah, this is it. So this has been my interpretation. I hope you like it, and I hope to hear any feedback from you. And thank you for listening. Bye.